Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. And I'm Jim Stump. And if you would like to email me, the address, of course, is counselorscouch101 at mail.com. Counselorscouch101 at mail.com. I like to know what you're thinking and what ideas you have for some of these posts, things you'd like to discuss. I'm often asked how did I get to become a counselor. People think that I was in high school thinking I wanted to study psychology, so I got an undergraduate degree in psychology and then went on to grad school and etc. and trained to be a counselor and on and on and on. But that wasn't my path at all. It had nothing to do with that. Um, I've also said that people go through many careers, especially in America. We go through many careers in a lifetime. We change things entirely and go do something that we weren't doing before for many reasons. Oftentimes, we're looking for change or something new or a new challenge, or because something um, is exciting to you that you want to look into and study. That's sort of what happened to me. When I was going to college, I read a lot of pop psychology books, the ones of the day. And I also read a lot of the pop psychology from earlier generations. I often found there was a lot more wisdom in earlier books than older ones because somewhere along the line, everyone decided that they needed to publish or perish, and so everybody was writing books. And oftentimes, the wisdom of the entire book was in the title. And that's all you needed to know was the title, which also it kind of leads to a phenomenon that's going on today. Oftentimes people will just glance at titles of things, online reports and articles and etc. And they pretty much think they've got the gist of what the heck it was all about. They don't want to spend the time reading all the words because someone wanted to fill up space in order to get paid. Anyway, so I read a lot of the early psychology books, the ones that were around my era and ones that had come before that. And I was just interested in psychology. One of the things that fascinated me when I was 20 years old, a lot of my college mates were running off to get married. A lot of them were planning to get married right after graduation, and some of them got married before they graduated. And I kept wondering, I kept looking, I said, she's a wonderful girl, and I really like her and everything, and you're a great guy. But why in the heck are you getting married, right? And I knew what I was looking for, and I never heard it. They would say things, I don't know, they said strange things like, my mother would like it, or we have the same goals. We have ways of supporting each other and the things we want to accomplish in life, and this and that. And that one's not so bad. But none of them ever said, I love her, I love him, and I can't stand being away from him. I want to be around him all the time. Not one of them. And that always puzzled me. I said, what the heck? You're getting married for superficial things. I swear to you, you're not going to believe me. One lady told me she'd get married because he has a nice car. He dresses well. He talks good, right? Stuff like that. And I'm saying, I don't know about this, folks. I don't know if these relationships are going to work out or not. But I wanted to understand it. So I'm reading. So I'm reading in order to understand my contemporaries. What makes them want to run off and be part of a couple? And of course, all of them got divorced. The ones who married early, that early, they were all divorced before they were 30. I sort of checked in with folks and I say, how's Mary? I haven't seen her in a long time. I haven't seen her in decades, right? Things change. So I wanted to understand that. I was studying pop psychology books. Later on, I already had a career. I was working full time. And I mentioned to you in previous posts that I sort of had an opportunity to do peer counseling in a church I was attending. Sit down with people who have problems and let them talk out their problems. And I thought that would be an interesting thing to do, and it would provide me with more information about human nature and human behavior. I thought it'd be an interesting little sideline thing to do. So I did peer counseling for a couple of years, and I told the director at one point, I said, I don't feel I know enough to be of assistance to these people. I don't think I can help them. I think I need to know more about psychology. Now, the director assured me that that wasn't necessary because what we were doing was not about psychology. It was about human nature and what God's plan for us was, and etc. And that's the approach that I was advised to take. And I said, I understand that, but I still feel inadequate. I want to go study. And the director said, well, if you want to study, then by all means go do it, right? If it's something that's in your heart and your mind, go do it. So I went off and started studying psychology. And I took all the core undergraduate psychology classes. Now, mind you, at that time, I already had an advanced degree, right? But I took the core undergraduate classes anyway because I wanted to learn what I might not have known had I wanted to go on in the study. So after taking all those classes, I said, what the heck, I'm here. I might as well enter a graduate program in psychology, right? Because I wanted to understand human nature, human behavior. I wanted to figure out where people were doing things that were obviously self-destructive or obviously not going to be successful. Why would you make choices like that? I didn't understand it. And also wanted to understand the difficulties that people had, including myself, in relationships. Why is this not working? It's like everybody's got a good heart, but somehow we're just butting heads and we're arguing all the time. And I said I wanted to understand that. So I went to the undergraduate courses and I said, what the heck? I entered a graduate program in psychology just for the education of it. Now, when I did that, a lot of advisors asked me why I was studying psychology, and they all had an eye to what's going to happen in the future. Are you looking for a job? And they all warned me. They say there are no jobs, right, in California particularly. The situation at that time, excuse me, the situation at that time was that I had talked to a lot of folks who had gotten degrees and licenses as counselors in the state of California. And they all told me that there were too many counselors and not enough clients, right? There was no work. And so these people were looking to other areas for gainful employment. They were not working as counselors. They all warned me that. And I told them, I said, it wasn't my idea to become a counselor. I was studying psychology because I had an interest in psychology, and I probably could use that information in other areas of my life, in the work I was doing, the career path I was on, and in relationships. I also was interested in writing at that time, and I thought knowing something about psychology would help me create and describe better and more realistic characters for the works I was writing on. And so for that reason, everybody says, okay, fine, that makes sense. You go ahead and do that because that's a better reason for going into that study than it is you're looking for a job. And as it turned out, when I graduated, when I got my license, which was several years after I graduated from that program, um, let me digress one more time. When I was in graduate school, I was thinking to myself, I'm here. I might as well take the steps that would lead to a license because it's only a little bit more work than what I'm already doing. So I may as well have not only the degree, but something else to put in my resume, right? So I went on to continue the study and to earn a license in the state of California. At the time I was licensed, right, I looked at the statistics, and the statistics were telling us that California had more counselors than all the other states combined. California had more counselors than all the other 49 states, right, combined. And half of those counselors in California were in Los Angeles, right? There were no jobs. Everybody was competing for clients. They were doing everything they could think of. People were writing books. They were giving education classes on how to get a counseling license in California. They were doing all sorts of side work. They were working in schools. They were working in churches. They were working all over the place because their idea of having a small local practice, individual practice, where it's you and the client and a paycheck, just it wasn't available. There weren't enough clients to make that happen. So I said, fine. I was okay with that. I'd often thought, because I had a different career anyway, I'd often thought that I would create what was then known as a boutique counseling service, right? And by that, it meant that you would have 4 or 5 clients a week, if that, just a few. I thought that'd be okay. I'm not here for the money. I just want to keep my hand in, keep my finger in, keep my head in the practice of psychology and working with human beings. So if I took a few clients, that would be fine. And I, wasn't looking for a career. And at the time that I was deciding this, someone asked me if I would come in and interview for a job, right? A job in counseling. I said, what the heck? It doesn't hurt to talk to people, right? That's a pun, right? Never mind. So I went over and I talked to this lady. And after sitting with her for a short while, she asked me if I would take a position with her counseling agency. She had a need for someone to run certain groups, right? And apparently, I don't know if it's still true or not, but at the time there were not a lot of male counselors around, and she was looking for someone to head up men's groups, and she thought that that would be a more beneficial match, than to having a woman trying to run men's groups. By the way, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think the best way to do any sort of group counseling is to have both a male and a female counselor working together on the issues. You really get a lot of cross pollination in there. I'm talking intellectually, no other way. And get a different viewpoint of things, and it's really beneficial to the people in the group. And oftentimes I conducted groups with all men and members of the group, but I had a female co-counselor. Those groups were not very well. Oftentimes she probably felt like she was defending a position all by herself, but the ladies I worked with did very well. And it was very beneficial to the men in the group to get a lady's perspective on the issues that we were discussing. It really worked well. But anyway, back to the story. So I started doing groups, and I figured initially the director of the program offered me 10 hours a week. That's what she said. All it's going to take, run some groups, 10 hours a week. I said, okay, that's not a problem. It'd be a good little side job to have, and it was interesting. I could do it in the evenings after my job, right? So I started doing that, and over time, the workload became greater and greater and greater. And then not only was I required to run the groups, I was required to sit with each one of the members of all those groups independently. All of a sudden, I found myself with 2 full-time jobs, right? That's the way that turned out. And I was content to stay that way. Well, not exactly that way. I wanted to lower some of the hours on the counseling because it was really getting to be too much. But other things happened in society and in the culture and all that. There came along a certain federal healthcare program, and that became law. And at that point, a lot of the people who had workers as employees of their businesses, all those people were let go, and they were offered jobs back as independent consultants, if at all. The reason for that is the employers did not want to pay for that federal insurance program, so they were just letting people go left and right. At that time, I found myself without a job necessarily. At my daytime job is what I'm talking about. That's where we were let go. And from there, I just started doing more counseling, and I started, like I say, I slipped into it sideways. I wasn't looking for a career in it, but I ended up doing it because when the original full-time job closed out, I just stepped into this field to do that, and it's been fascinating. It truly has. Um, it's been, I don't know what the word is. I'm grateful for all the experiences I've had. I've learned a lot about human beings. I've learned a lot about human nature and life and why people do what they do. And my view of the world and relationships and behavior now is so vastly different than I had back when I was 20 and back when I was first studying psychology. I have a completely different view. And it came not from studying books, but from working with human beings and talking to them. It's been a fascinating journey. So that's how I got here, right? Now, at this point, I probably should be kicking back and enjoying the fruits of my labor and et cetera, et cetera. But you get to a point in the culture and society where you sort of don't have the wherewithal to do that. And sort of have to keep working in order to keep up with the expenses and the bills. And that's how I ended up in this particular position I am now. Once again, the reason I'm talking to you here on this YouTube video is because someone asked me if I would step in and provide some help for folks. I've done a lot of pro bono work over the years. I really have. I've given away a lot of hours. That's probably another reason why I'm still working. I haven't regretted it, not in the least, but there is a limit to how much you can give away before you finally have to earn some money. So I'm not suggesting any of that here. I'm just describing my current condition because people are asking about it. And that's why I continue to work. And here I'm hoping to do some of that pro bono work. I really think a lot of folks can accomplish a lot in the way of self change on their own if they want to do it. But that's the prerequisite right there. People have got to want to change something. Then you got to have to know what it is you want to change and then what you want to change to. If you have those things, the rest becomes a question of devising steps to get you from where you are to where you want to go. I don't know if that describes my journey for you or not, but some of you have been asking. By the way, just as another side note before we close, I do a lot of counseling on the phone, and that happened in a sort of sidestep way as well. And I'm not a cancer, by the way. Um, I had clients who were traveling, right? And they said, I still want to talk to you, even though I'm going out on business. I'm going to be out for 6 weeks, but I still want to talk to you. So we determined to meet via telephone. And at that time, they didn't have Zoom or anything of that sort for us to use. So I would talk to these folks over the phone, and I found that it worked perfectly well. I did not have to sit with the person in the room for the conversation to be successful. And then the second thing that happened after I did that is that other people said, I have a sister over in Maine. I think it would be helpful for her if you would talk to her. And of course, I told them, well, I said, I can't do psychotherapy out of the state of California because the licensing only allows us to practice in the state in which we live, and are licensed in, rather. And the lady said, well, can't you even just talk to her anyway? And I stopped and I thought about it. And I said, well, truth of the matter is I can talk to anybody anytime I please, right? There's no law against that. I just can't offer psychotherapy services over the telephone and over distances, right? But yeah, I could talk to her. And from there, once again, I was just doing pro bono time, talking to people for a few conversations, trying to help them out of whatever dilemma they were in at the time. And I started to get more people making those sorts of requests. And there was a lady with someone in Texas, and there was another one with somebody in New Jersey and Florida. I didn't do a lot of it, but I did enough of it to get comfortable with it. Talking with someone I can't see, I can't read their body language, they can't read mine, and we're just talking over the phone about whatever issues are troubling them. And I found that over time, it was a really good way to go. And the reason for that, I think, is because we didn't have the distraction of reading body language, right? And facial expression, and etc. That all can be a distraction. I was hearing the emotion in the voice, right? I could hear a lot of things and I can identify it. And I would say something to the person I was talking to in order to confirm my impression. And most often they said, yes, that's exactly what's going on. I couldn't see them, but I still picked up on their emotional condition of that time. I got comfortable with it. And over time, I've done more of it. And since we had COVID and we started doing distance counseling, I've talked to many people over the phone without using visuals. And how that came about oftentimes is that people said it's a nuisance to go find a place to sit quietly and do a Zoom or FaceTime or whatever the heck they had that was going to work. I would use whatever electronic communication that fit between the two of us, between the electronics I had and the electronics that they had. Once they connected up, we'd use that, whatever it was. But I found that there used to be a concept. I'm digressing, but it's connected. There used to be a concept of the blank slate. And I've forgotten who came up with that. I think I knew it once upon a time, but I've forgotten who came up with the idea. I think it pertains to psychoanalysis. All right. I do not practice psychoanalysis. I'm not a psychoanalyst, and I don't have that skill, and I don't do that type of work. But we can borrow different techniques from different sorts of approaches to counseling. I think it came from psychoanalysis, the idea of the blank slate. And the whole thing was that the counselor would give off as little information or reaction about themselves as possible so that the person they're talking with can sort of guess and project onto the counselor the sorts of things that they thought the counselor might be thinking or believing or acting upon, etc. And what that always was, it had nothing to do with what the counselor was thinking. It had to do with what the person was expecting from another person in life. They would project onto the blank slate, and that would give the counselor the information of what was truly going on at a lower level, maybe even unconscious or subconsciously with the person you're talking to, right? You sort of pick up on it, and I had one guy say to me one time, you're an angry guy, aren't you? Just like my dad. Well, I'm not really an angry guy. One woman said, I'll bet you're abusive. I'll bet you've slapped your wife around. Well, no, never did that either. But it gives me an idea where those people are coming from. And those two are negative sorts of projections. And that's usually what comes out as negativity. But sometimes people would come up with the opposite. They would say things like, I bet you have all the women, stuff like that, or all the men, whatever. But they would project on that and would give you an idea of what they were thinking because it wasn't me at all. Every time someone projected something like that onto me and expressed what that was, it was always inaccurate. I'm not blaming them in the least. I'm saying that the process worked. The blank slate. They're not reading my body language, and I'm not reading theirs either. I'm not reacting to the way they're moving or looking or the facial expressions. I'm reacting to the emotion I can hear in their voice. And I just thought it was a good way to go. And for me, it works very well. So I tend to want to talk to people over the phone and not use the Zoom or the safe electronic systems that people have out there to protect people's anonymity, etc., and privacy. I tend to not want to use those. Oftentimes I feel like I'm screaming and shouting at something, trying to get across the distance, I guess. And I don't like the way the visuals turn out. Oftentimes, I've said this to many people. I look in the mirror and I say, that's me. That's what I look like, right? But I look on these Zoom things and other sorts of things, and I feel like it's distorted. That's not really the way I look. And I'm guessing that's not really the way the other person looks. The camera is bending it just a little bit, so I'm not getting a pure view of what's going on. But I can hear things in the voice. I can hear the emotion in it. I think I've gotten used to it. I've gotten pretty good at it. So I've asked people I've talked to recently. I say, how does it feel to talk to somebody over the phone you never met and never even knew what they looked like? And one lady told me not too long ago. She said it was strange at first, but it became very comfortable very quickly. It was odd at the very beginning, but went right into old friends. I don't know. I think there's a security in that anonymity. I think there is. You know, I have a brother. He said that the thing about driving cars and trucks and everything, he said everybody feels equal, right? If you're in a vehicle, if you're a little person, you're equal to some big guy in his car, and you feel like you could run him down or outrace him or anything as much as he could, right? It produces an equality. I thought that it sort of pertains to talking to someone on the telephone at the same time. There's a sort of an equality. There's a sort of a closeness and intimacy that might not exist otherwise, It's almost like pillow talk. And I don't mean for any of you to take that the wrong way. It's just that we sort of connect deeper, right? Because it's safe, right? There's a distance there. They don't have to worry about me looking at them and judging them. And I don't have to worry about them making some sort of inference about me by the way I look or don't look, or the way I'm sitting or the clothes I'm wearing. we're talking about the emotional side of the person, and we're focused on that. We're not focused on the visual, right? We're not distracted by it. So oftentimes I think it works really well. And a lot of counselors have questioned me about that. They say, how can you work that way? You can't see the person. And I say, I think it works better, right? I think we're distracted. Other counselors, and there's a lot of validity in it. And I'm not saying it's not worthwhile. They do read the body language. They do read the facial expressions. They read all that stuff, and they say that it gives them insight into the person's emotional landscape at the moment and into the things that bother them and concern them. And I agree it does, but I think we can get there just as well through talking. I think the voice carries a lot of secrets. I think it carries a lot of information, let's put it that way, and allows me to see into where someone is emotionally stunted or flowing freely. Just my thought. How did I get here? That's sort of how I got here. A confluence or a series of events kept pushing in different directions until you finally, this is where I am now. I'm working on my latest book, by the way, so that might take me in a whole different direction. We'll see what happens with that. It could be fun. And this book is not on psychology, right? Not in the least. So we'll see what life brings. Maybe another career is coming and I'll be off doing something else in a few years. Who knows? But for now, I'm here and I'm trying to help folks out as much as I can while I'm here. No telling how long any of us have to do anything. We might have an electric pulse thing happen in the country and all of the electronics burns out and shuts down, in which case we won't be talking like this in the future. Whatever happens, we'll deal with it when it comes. In the meantime, I hope that answers your questions about how I got here and why I continue to stay here and what my aspirations are for this position in the future. If you have any other questions about it, go ahead, put them in the comments. And if they're personal questions, please email them over and I will respond to them as best I can. I will admit, I apologize to some of you. You know who you are. It's very difficult for me to keep up with all the requests for my time and attention. I apologize, but I do try to get to all the issues as much and as well as I can. I hope that answers your questions. I enjoy meeting with you folks. I look forward to speaking with you next time. So until then, God bless. Have a good week and enjoy this new year. I hope you're having fun. Take care.